Hey Leon, welcome back to part two. So following on from our conversation previously where we were talking about how to get started with automation and AI, let's get straight back into it.
Let's go. Let's do it.
What we've seen is lots of different examples that kind of sit around of, where we can put in systems now that will not. And I think the other angle to this isn't just about to speed things up. It's about the accuracy that sits there. So, I talk about, how we've started to use AI, within AAG and kind of automations that sit behind there. So we've literally just gone live yesterday. We've got a couple of new systems that have kind of gone in place. So firstly, we now have an AI triage process. So that when customers log a ticket with us, historically, we had a team of people that would analyze the ticket. So a bit like a A&E at the hospital, you'd kind of go in and you've either got a slight graze on your wrist or you've got your leg hanging off. The slight graze gets a lower priority. Your leg hanging off goes straight to the top of the pile, and ultimately we want to get you back up and running as quickly as possible. Now, unfortunately, humans sometimes make mistakes. Sometimes when you read the written word, you don't necessarily get the context that sits behind there. Understanding the sentiment of the issue, that whether somebody's frustrated or, how quickly it needs to be responded to, that sits around, and asking intelligent questions, all the training that's got to go into, a new member of staff coming in and learning all of our customers' different systems, all those different environments. It's impossible to do. We've got about 120 different customers that we look after, all different networks, all different environments, all different configurations.
Yep.
And there's no one in the business that will know every single aspect of every single one of those networks. It's impossible to do.
Yep.
But now we've got a tool that the security and segregation of all that data is incredibly secure. We've had to be really careful in terms of the way that that's done.
Mm-hmm.
But individually is learning about those environments, the types of tickets that get logged, how we fixed that problem last time, and the automatically creating knowledge base articles off the back of fixing issues, understanding the detail and the context and the criticality of the impact in all those businesses. Now we've got something that is going to ask smart, intelligent questions because it knows
relevant questions.
It understands the impact of the business and is a lot more accurate. There's no getting away from that. And then the bits that do fall between the cracks, unfortunately there's always grey. What it now means is that our people can spend more time talking to customers, actually analysing the grey, i.e. what are the bits that aren't necessarily crystal clear, so that we can refine and reprompt and educate the AI that kind of sits around that. And ultimately, for us, that allows, by analysing all that information, we can then understand the skill set that's required to fix that ticket. And now what we can do is we can route that ticket straight to the right engineer first time.
Depth with the right skill set.
So they can fix the problem first time. Rather than the traditional approach that everybody will have experienced, is it potentially going to, and it's the same whether you phone BT or any other kind of service desk, it goes to a junior engineer, then it gets escalated to somebody who knows a little bit more, then it gets escalated, if it's a really, really complex problem. Now we can say, if it's a really, really complex problem, send it straight up here. And from a customer service experience perspective, becomes allows us to deliver a significantly better service. Now that just wouldn't be possible without using AI.
Yep. So AI needs to really read between the gaps. So you can have automation do this, but you need AI to have the intelligence to scan the business, so find out what's important to that business. So, for example, Adobe Creative Cloud would be probably less important for a financial company than it would be for a creative media agency. So having some intelligence behind that, like a human would, to say, I know for a fact that they're a creative media agency, therefore Adobe being down is probably important to them as a business. So that human needs to make that judgment, and if you use AI, you can then use that same judgment to determine the criticality of that issue. So it's going to really, really help things, not just from a customer service point of view as well. So it's customers get their tickets resolved faster, which ultimately will help our customers, which is fantastic, but also reducing human error as well. So making sure it goes to the right place at the right time and reducing any human mistakes along the process.
And I've seen some really poor implementations of AI, and I've seen some experiences where I've interacted with large customers and kind of large customers that they've done a really poor job of putting in, and they've not necessarily tested it. But I think there's some really, really good applications that sit there, and I'm starting to see quite a bit more of voice AI that's been used from a customer service perspective. So not necessarily on the basis of replacing the humans that sit behind it, but those transactional questions. So I know an example of a garage that we look after, and we've kind of put in a voice AI system that somebody's just phoning up and they just want the status of where their car is. Where is it in the process? Is it in the body shop? Is it in the spray booth? I just want to know where it is and roughly when it's going to be ready for me to come and collect it. Now, they have a team of reception people that all they're doing is taking calls all the day. It's in the spray shop. I'll give you the next status update. It's now moved on to the next stage, etc. Well, now they can phone up. It'll if they're calling from the number that's recognised on the system, they can verify who they are, and it will give them that status update. Now, that might be enough. That might be all they want. Or it can still say, no, I'll put you through. If you've got more questions, I'll put you straight through to somebody that can help. But for most people, that then shields 50% of the calls that would be going through to that reception area. So it's not about getting rid of that personalised service that sits there, but and it's quite an interesting cultural question. I was talking about somebody about this the other day. I think as we've evolved around technology, I think people have become incredibly impatient now. You look at when we use phones. If your phone starts lagging, you say you've got an iPhone in 3 years, and guess what? Suddenly it doesn't respond as quickly as it used to. Everybody gets really frustrated. It takes half a second longer for it to swipe, but we're impatient. When we interact with somebody, our level of patience and what we demand from our systems, as you talk about kind of bell curve, is exponentially kind of increased. I remember, not long ago, when you booted up your laptop, it might take 5-10 minutes until it was fully loaded and ready to go, and sat there and you'd go and get a coffee. If my laptop's not on in 30 seconds and I can't fully use everything, I'm frustrated now. And that's not just, but I think as a society, we've suddenly kind of gone, we want immediate gratification. We want immediate answers. We expect this stuff. And so I think that's where, using the correct implementation, we can get that balance between allowing people to have that almost immediate gratification that we're going to get an intelligent response, but not lose that personal touch that sits behind it. That human interaction, that is going to be interesting how things evolve over the next few years, and particularly the next 10 years. But I would hate to think we lose that personal human interaction that sits behind there.
Yeah, there's a lot of resistance to AI in general, more so in the creative industry. So artists creating the creative types and whatnot. But I think as we grow, there's going to be some companies which will use AI in absolutely everything they do, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And there are some that will probably adopt a hybrid approach. I think as we go, we're going to see more customers want to use companies that adopt more of a hybrid approach. So using AI for the quick and easy and simple tasks, like the body shop example, for example, but still have that human element if they require it. So I think there's going to be a hybrid approach over the next few years, and that's where the biggest companies will win out, personally.
Talk about the music industry. AI makes me can sound like I've got a voice like an angel, but trust me, you don't want to hear me sing. What about AI agents? This for me is the hot topic. I don't know if you spent much time looking at this, but I'm now, and I've got some stuff set up for me that's just doing daily tasks where An AI agent is effectively, rather than having to manually kind of go and do a prompt, actually I've pre-programmed it to do a function for me. So, as an example, unfortunately we've still got some spreadsheets that we do stuff on. And when a particular spreadsheet that we use within our team and our department, when there's an update on it, it pings me a notification. I don't want updates for everything, but a certain section of it, if there's a new line that goes on this particular section of the spreadsheet, it will say, hey, this has been added. It'll send me a Teams notification, and on a Monday morning, it'll send me a weekly summary of all of those changes. Now, that's something historically I would have either asked somebody to do for me, or I'd need to remember or go and find that spreadsheet and go navigate and think, but it's now presenting me that information kind of really, really quickly. Have you seen any examples of where AI agents are starting to be used, or?
Yeah, so I use it myself, obviously for my job. I'm working in IT. I've got to I'll be on the top with technology all the time. But
I'd be quite worried if you weren't. Isn't it?
Yes. But what it is it's giving companies with no IT experience the ability to create codified solutions for their job. So there's an example for mine. I've got a bot that I built that essentially summarizes IT news. So I've given it, basically, I spoke to Copilot agent. I said, I want to build a bot that can summarize IT news for me from these URLs every Monday morning. So I can look at it in a bite-sized chunk, and if anything's of interest to me, I can click on it and, latest news on Azure, on Teams, etc. for my job. And that's been fantastic. It just runs in the background. I didn't have to do any coding whatsoever, any configuration. I just asked Copilot agent to build it, and it built it. And with that, I've been talking to one of our clients at school. So teachers have to keep up to date with curriculum changes for their classes, for their lessons. So I've been talking to them about that agent and showing them how to use it through Copilot agents. And teachers now have the ability to build these bots so they can get updates from curriculum changes automatically. And they can do that themselves. They don't need sort of us involvement. We don't need a massive 5-10 day engineering project to go and build it. Agents are giving non-tech people the ability to improve their own workflows for things that they find beneficial for themselves. I think it's very empowering, I think, for a lot of people.
And again, I look at kind of the history of me working in IT. This kind of stuff, automation AI has been about for a long time. It's been about a lot longer than people understand or necessarily realise.
AI research started in the 70s, a long time ago.
But again, going back to what I've seen over many years is this would have historically been a team of developers. They're incredibly complex processes to build this stuff out. And what you're describing is anybody can do this. This is just being able to, I need to describe this thing of what I want it to do. And you literally type it in, or even talk to it, tell it what you want it to do, and it kind of goes, is this what you mean? And it's built it and done. And then you test it and kind of go, that's not quite doing what I want. Can you do it this way instead? And it goes, okay. And goes away, rebuilds it, reconfigures it, and it works. You might need to do that a couple more times where it kind of goes, no, I've got it wrong. And then you just keep correcting it. But ultimately, a bit like going back to that apprentice scenario, can you go and do this task for me? They come back, go, right, okay, yeah, that's really good, but could you just make these few changes? And they go away, make those changes, come back, go, right, nearly there. Can you just make that one final tweak for me? Goes back, comes back, and go, yeah, perfect. And that's effectively what building an AI agent is like.
Yeah, it's just natural language. You just tell it what you want, and then it builds it. And then if it's wrong, you just say, oh, no, change this, change that, and it rebuilds it.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, a team of developers, a long project, you'd have to map out all your processes. You'd have to decide data mapping. It'd be a long, drawn-out process, and a lot of people would just be like, we can't afford the investment. But now, Copilot license, talk to it yourself. That's it.
It's frightening how, well, it's not frightening, it's actually really empowering how easy this has got. And I think it's one of those things that everybody that's either got a Copilot license or when they sign into 365, they probably don't even notice it, that it's appeared on the left-hand side, because the first thing everyone does is when Microsoft changed the layout when you log into the screen, is going, well, how do I navigate to the way I used to navigate to get to stuff?
Outlook?
and you bypass looking at these new things that have appeared. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the other important aspect of this isn't a load of additional cost. Most of the time this is just using the tool set and the licenses that people have already purchased. They've already got the power there. And I think that's probably the other bit that I find really surprising, is that particularly when we go into new businesses, that you kind of go, you start making recommendations and everyone kind of says, well, it's going to cost me an absolute fortune. You kind of go, no, you've already got it. Yeah. You've just not been shown how to use this stuff. And the actual return for the business is, actually, there's a bit of time in terms of us training you and showing you how to do this, but you haven't got to go and spend thousands of pounds, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds on this technology. It's stuff that's literally sat there ready to use.
Yeah. Most businesses I speak to, they've all got most of them got business premium licenses, and most businesses only use Outlook, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint. That's it. There's about 50 other products within business premium that you can utilize. And when I go and speak to businesses during our working groups, we sit down with users and not only say, oh, did you know you can use AI and automation for this? But actually, we say, you're actually licensed for, I don't know, Viva or Engage, for example, or a little bit of Power BI. You could do this with those tools you already have. We just need to show you how.
I think, a good example of an AI agent is one of the things that you, I say you built, it didn't take you long, but when we get a new business inquiry that kind of comes into the team, historically what people would do is you'd get a business inquiry that comes in, you'd go and have a look at their LinkedIn, you'd have a look at their webpage, you'd have a look in the news if there was anything relevant to do them, you'd look at company's house, you'd do some research into that business before you make a call. So doing your due diligence, and let's make sure that we understand everything about them. And that process historically could take a couple of hours. But if you do proper deep due diligence, even just responding to a prospect call could be a couple of hours worth of work to do it properly.
Yep.
Now that's all, but you've combined that all into an AI agent that the inquiry comes in, and it automatically, based on the information that comes through on there, does all of that and sends the salesperson a summary of going, here's all the stuff that you need to know about this business. All neatly compiled in one document. The time saving in that alone is huge. And, you kind of expert that out of when we talk to customers about this, they kind of go, okay, how long is that going to take to do? And you kind of go, an hour, a bit of prompting to just kind of put this together. As long as you can give us the information, or well, even better, we'll show you how to do it. But it's not an overly difficult thing to do, is it? Short period of time.
The bot that I built, is data enrichment. I think just about every company can benefit from data enrichment. In that, I'd say quite a lot of companies will have a CRM platform where they manage their customer relationships, even just vendor management. Maybe you're looking for a new supplier for something. This bot, if you just put in the company name, the website, and then it provides a HTML report. So it's nice, pretty colours. You can read it very nicely. And for our specific example, it gives our sales guys sales angles, discussion points. Yeah. So, for example, it will research recent news and say, "Oh, I've noticed you've won a gold award recently for whatever you did," and we can use that in our initial sales call. So it looks to the customer like we've done a whole lot of research and we actually invested into that business. I mean, we are obviously.
Giving our secrets away.
Oh, well, but that...
No, it's about being smart with your time.
Ultimately. Being smart with the time, exactly, yeah. So that bot that I built can actually be tailored to a variety of different clients. So if they've got anything that they need data enrichment for, that they do research for often, we can tailor that for them as well.
So I think, we've spoken about lots of different things today. And I think, for me, the message I want to get kind of across to people is, the first question is, right, how do we get started with this? And for me, I always ask everyone to take a step back, and the first thing to do is get everybody in a room. Not everybody, but to get individuals from each department across the business and get them in a room, and what we both typically do is sit there and chair and facilitate that meeting, and just get people talking about their job and their role, etc. And there's all sorts of things that kind of come out of that process. And this isn't just about automation AI. This improves interdepartmental communication, because often we see solutions that have been implemented historically. So it might be a business has gone and put a CRM system in place to try and resolve a problem in a specific department. But actually that same issue impacts multiple departments. They don't just necessarily talk to each other about it. So some of the things that have just been resolved in a business without doing anything technology-wise, just by people going, oh, right, well, if you do that, that causes this issue over here. Well, I didn't know that. Well, we can change. We don't need it to work that way. And they're going to go, oh, right, well, I didn't know. And suddenly we've got an efficiency just from that conversation taking place, just by some misconceptions or, things have always been done in that way and don't necessarily know that things have evolved in terms of processes or systems or how things can be done. But then from our perspective, the stuff that kind of comes out is kind of right. That mundane process, that thing that you do, that time-consuming aspect that people think is incredibly complex. Refer back to the example you kind of said earlier, where we went into a team of data analysts, and effectively all they were doing was manipulating data and manipulating spreadsheets. To know how to do that was incredibly complex, but actually could be systemized. And it was boring, mundane work. It needed to be done to transform the data to go into their system. But actually immediately got a huge amount of time back, and their skill that they had in the room was redeployed in the business to actually deliver things that were more productive. So getting people talking about their roles, getting people talking about what they do, we've then been able to go, right, okay, listening to that, well, we can automate that. Mm-hmm. And we can do that. And typically starting with small things, because it gets engagement.
Quick wins, builds trust.
Yep, 100%. And what we then find is we get that quick win, we make that thing it's easy for them, and they go, oh, you've seen exactly the same reactions going, well, if we could do that, can we do that?
Can we do this? Yeah.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah.
No problem at all. And then suddenly you've got a culture within the business itself that is going, they're starting to think differently. They're starting to kind of go, oh, I don't have to do it the way I've always done it. I don't, we've always done it this way for that reason. They're now challenging their business and their processes and what they do. And suddenly culturally, you've got a more productive workforce because they're thinking smarter. And that's not because they weren't thinking smartly before, but you don't know what you don't know.
It's a different frame of mind. So it's looking at a problem from a different angle. A lot of companies we're going to speak to about with working groups, you tend to find departments are siloed. So there's that interdepartmental communication that can or can't happen. But what we find when we come in as an external company is we, from an outside view, are looking in at their processes. Sometimes it can be hard to determine issues or things that could be automated or things that could be changed when you're in the weeds, in the middle of it. Sometimes it takes someone externally to say, right, so you do this, and then you do that, and then you do that, and you do that. So why? Why do you do that bit in the middle?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've always done it that way. And then you start to say, right, well, you probably don't need that, but we can automate this, this, and this, and then at the end have AI write a nice summary, and that'll save you 8 hours.
I remember I went into one customer that I think it was something like some engineer sheets that used to kind of get sent back in, and they would print them out. They would then handwrite the job number on there, because that's many years ago, that's what the finance team demanded. They would then have to go back and scan them in. Then they would send it to their email. Then they would save it to a SharePoint folder. And then they would email it on, etc. Without kind of getting into all the really specifics. And I kind of just went, why'd you do that? Well, because they have to have this number on the document itself. I said, well, one, there's a couple of smart ways, but why do they need that number? And they couldn't answer the question. I said, right, can we just go and ask finance why they need that number? And we kind of went to talk to finance and went,
We don't.
But this person was processing probably about 80 of these sheets a day, and the massive frustration for her in terms of that role. But just getting people to talk to each other, it was like, well, I don't need to do that. I've been doing that for God knows how long, and it was just like, wow, and just that communication and kind of again going back to some of the real efficiencies that it's had. So I think for me, probably wrapping this up is, whether you use AAG or whether you talking to your internal IT teams, I'm a massive advocate of going, the time that you will get back in your business, it feels like a loss of productive time by pulling people out of departments and getting them sat in a room and talking to each other because everybody's busy and everybody's got stuff to do. But that will be the most valuable time that you will get, and the return that you will get within the business of people thinking smarter, challenging the way that things are done, having somebody there that can let you know what technology is capable of doing, I think is incredibly powerful. And like I said, I think what we've both experienced is that moment when everyone goes, if you can do that, can we do that? That's the game changer. That's the bit that is the absolute, for me, the magic and is the satisfaction then that we've now instilled that thought process into people.
Yeah, and it's satisfying for me when you go into a business, you do these working groups and you evaluate everything, and then the customer's like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure if we can justify the cost, etc. And then I'll say, we'll do this one bit, we'll do this one little bit now, and then you do that. And then you build your trust, you get that quick win, and then suddenly the satisfaction for me is that customer saying, what else can we do? What more can we do? This has saved us 8 hours, this has saved us 20 hours, this has saved us $5,000 a month.
That's perfect. That's when we stand up and go, right, we've done our job.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. So I think we'll wrap it up there. But I think thanks very much for your time, Leon.
Yep.
And
no worries.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.